Hello everybody and welcome to another episode on the Pole Position YouTube channel. In this one we are going to be discussing the first week of F1 winter testing. Yes, that's right, we've been talking about it for weeks and finally we got to see the cars back on track and in Spain, in Barcelona, the track where we see the Spanish Grand Prix. We saw the cars out on track. It was great to see the new liveries, a couple of new drivers. And yeah, it was really great to see. Obviously, we've still got next week's test as well. This first week is a bit more just sort of getting the cars out on the tracks, getting as much mileage as possible. Can't really tell much in terms of where they are going to be in terms of performance, but you know that'll be something to talk about in the next video in the next week of winter testing. So in this one, we're just going to go through a few points that have happened in the last couple of days and just round off my thoughts on where I think the cars are at the minute. So let's get into it. So we're just going to have a broad overview in terms of the days of testing. Now I'm going to look at day 3 because obviously day 1 and day 2, again it was more sort of just bedding in and getting as much miles as possible. But I think overall, even if we looked at day 3, I think the first week of testing is sort of revolved around Mercedes. Still the top dogs, still performing well. As loads of laps, over 100 laps. Beating the records of before. Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton both, doing everything they can. Valtteri Bottas even beating Lewis Hamilton in terms of the times on day 3. Again, don't really think we should look too much into that because like I said, even the first week is just about getting the mileage. I think Valtteri Bottas' time was on like the softer tyre. And that I don't think that tyre gets used in terms of the actual Spanish Grand Prix. So, it was going to be a quick time. I think Kimi Raikkonen did it the day before. So, in terms of that, I mean, it was great. Obviously, Valtteri Bottas wanted to try the red stripe tyre and the softest tyre of all of them on the compounds of the year, and put in a belter of a lap. So a 1 minute 15.7, great lap around the circuit to Catalonia in Barcelona. So yeah, I mean Lewis Hamilton on the softest tyre also did a 1 minute 16, but like I said, I don't think we should really take too much into that. I mean, it's good, I think, in terms of confidence for Valtteri Bottas to actually beat his teammate in one of the tests. Obviously, that's good, but again, like I said, Mercedes were sort of dominant because both of them managed to do a full Grand Prix distance on day 3. The reliability is still there. They're still showing what they're capable of, and of course they've had that new design. Everybody's been talking about it. That new steering wheel system. Now, obviously, I won't go too much into it because I think there are other people out there that have better knowledge on it than me. The replays when it first came, I didn't see it. I didn't notice anything, which wasn't really good, really. But then, obviously, you notice that the steering wheel comes out a little bit, and yeah, it is interesting that that's something that they're going to use. Obviously, we don't know, how much of an effect it has. Mercedes obviously thinks so. Other people on the grid are now looking at it, going, actually, is that something we can look at? But I think it's only in for 2020 because 2021, the regulation changes. That's something that won't be allowed in the sport. So I think if obviously Mercedes have put a lot of work into it, so obviously they're going to use it for this year. But in terms of other people, other teams, I just don't think it's worth it because they're going to put all that money in. And it's only going to be for this year, with Mercedes already being sort of in the loop in terms of already using it and already investing in it for some time. So I think in terms of that, if I was the other teams, I wouldn't really think about it. Sebastian Vettel, he thinks it's obviously good and obviously good for Mercedes, but yeah, he has had some sort of comments about it. He's just seen it from the outside. That obviously we're lucky now to have onboards to see these sort of footages, because otherwise, if we didn't have the onboards, we wouldn't even notice it was there. But one of his comments was, imagine you're used to running and you put on your running shoes and then somebody asks you to run with your flip-flops. you can do it, but it feels very different. And I think that's what he's talking about in terms of the motion of, adjusting the steering wheel at top speed. I mean, I think Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton must have used it over like the winter break on the simulator and things like that. So obviously I think they are used to it now. But I expect it was quite a weird feeling. So obviously Sebastian Vettel is, happy for them in terms of Mercedes that they've thought of this new idea, but it must have been quite weird for the drivers. I think, in terms of Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari, they just need to sort of bed down. If we just move on to Ferrari really quickly, obviously they had the big the photo shoot on Wednesday with all the drivers on the starting grid. Sebastian Vettel then decided not to do the first test because he wasn't feeling well enough, so Charles Leclerc had to step in. It wasn't supposed to be his day. He stepped in, did a good job. Sebastian Vettel came in for the afternoon on the second day, and then he was in for the third day yesterday. So I think both of them have had a good amount of running in terms of performance. I think Sebastian Vettel will want a bit more this second week coming up. But I think he sort of said that it's already a step up from last year in terms of the car that he's been driving these last couple of days. We've definitely been a step up this year. We've definitely improved. So that's good. But also looking at the flip side, Matteo Binotto, the team principal, thinks that they're not as fast as their rivals, and that includes Red Bull. So not just Mercedes, but it includes Red Bull as well. So that's interesting for him to say. Maybe he's sort of like putting the pressure on both of them two teams and sort of saying they're the big dogs and we're going to be like the underdogs in terms of this season. Maybe he's sort of putting the pressure on them, and obviously they're going to come good. But to be saying that already is if you were a Ferrari fan, it's not really great to hear that the team principal is already saying, well, I think they're already faster than us. So that'll be interesting. Will they show their true pace and true potential for the second week of testing? Let's hope so, because obviously, like I said, I want to see them top three teams fighting each week for the wins, not just like a clear victory for Mercedes or Red Bull or whatever. I want to be seeing these rivalries throughout every race. So let's hope he's just sort of playing it cool, is Matteo Binotto. But that's not a great thing to be hearing. In terms of Red Bull as well, they're saying they've hit the ground running, and they did look good. Max Verstappen on the first day had a couple of spins, but I think in terms of that, it looked fast, and Max Verstappen has admitted that it's been good. The car is faster than obviously we've had last season. The amount of laps they've done as well. I just think it looks good. It looks good, and that's what I'm hoping for. Alex Albon says, I think we're looking strong. I think obviously Mercedes are looking stronger as well. But in terms of last year's car, it's a step up. Again, what Sebastian Vettel said, but that's what Alex Albon said. We've hit the ground running. So again, that's good, because I want to see Red Bull. I want to see Ferrari. Possibly McLaren. Possibly Renault, although we might get onto Renault in terms of what's happened for them in this first test. I want to see these teams push up a little bit higher and sort of fight Mercedes for this. And so I think if Red Bull are already feeling confident, that's great. Like I said, they'll already know not to read too much into it. Like I said, it's only the first week of testing. Testing as a whole doesn't really mean too much. It's all just about the mileage. But for them to already be feeling confident about the car they've got is great. I did see that Alex Albon yesterday was like having his seat adjusted a little bit. While he was there, he was feeling a little bit of an issue rubbing on his shoulder. But I think all these little niggles you try and get out of the way. In these 6 days of testing, it was 8 days last year. Been moved to 6, so it's even less. So they really have to make sure that everything is right when they start the season in Melbourne. So I think it's looking really good. I think, like I said, it all depends on what next week's test brings. What the actual performances of the car are looking, and then of course when we get to a lot of practice and of course qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix, I think that will obviously tell where all the teams are, and that'll be interesting to sort of see where that goes. But that's sort of the top three teams. Like I said, I'm not going to go too much into detail. If I just look at the day three's final classification, obviously you've got Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton 1-2. Bottas did 65 laps, Hamilton did 73. Sebastian Vettel did 100 laps. Antonio Giovinazzi for Alfa Romeo did 152. Lance Stroll for Racing Point, again, Racing Point are looking quite good. Obviously they got everybody's been calling it the pink Mercedes because it looks very much like Mercedes' car for last year. But hey, if that team's winning constructors and drivers championships, if you can take their sort of ideas, why not? Lance Stroll did all right, 116 laps. Yeah, it's looking good. I think also, a quick mention to Williams. I think they've done really well. They were the first car out on Wednesday. Had to make sure that they had them horrible 2 days of the first test last year where they didn't even bring the car. So to actually be the first car out this year, I think that meant the most. They were probably itching to get out and be the first car this year, so that's good. Nicholas Latifi's been doing well as well. He did 72 laps yesterday, which is good. In terms of McLaren as well, they're looking all right. Lando Norris did 49 laps. Carlos Sainz did 76. I'm not really going too much into the actual times because everybody's doing different simulations. They could be doing race runs, they could be doing like lap times, or they could just be doing other bits to test reliability. So I'm not really going too much into the actual times they did around the track. Good day actually for Renault. The last couple of days, the first 2 days, they didn't look very good. They had a few issues, and Daniel Ricciardo wasn't really getting much lap times out. So yesterday he did 93 laps, and Esteban Ocon did 76. So that's good. That's looking promising. Now hopefully they can build on that for the second week. Because it was worrying. I think personally, I'd keep their test livery. I think it looks good. I think compared to sort of last year as well with the slim down nose, I think Renault's car does look really nice. Obviously when they go back to the yellow, it might change my opinion, but I think the way it is now, it's really good. I've already said that AlphaTauri's car, I said AlphaTauri, but it's actually AlphaTauri. Was Toro Rosso. I think theirs is the best looking car on the grid. I think it looks amazing. They've been doing as well as well. Gasly 59 laps yesterday. Daniel Kvyat did 62. So I think everybody's had good in terms of reliability. I think Renault's probably had the worst. I think in the first couple of days. Bottas obviously there was an electrical problem for the car on the second day of testing, so I think that cut him short. Kimi Raikkonen stopped on track one of the days, but that was just to test something. So that he meant to sort of stop on track, meant to put not much fuel in the car. So that was sort of meant to be. Sebastian Vettel had an issue yesterday, but still managed to do 100 laps. So yeah, I think it's looking really good. They're just sort of the things I wanted to sort of go through in terms of the actual test. I will be writing a blog on it as well, so I will put notes into that as well. Renault impressed me on the final day in terms of the first couple of days were quite poor. So I think this test. It's sort of, there's obviously bits to talk about, obviously with the new steering wheel and how the cars look and the mileage the drivers are getting, but in terms of actual performance, there's not really much to talk about in terms of where we think they're going to be, like I've said. So I think obviously when we do the next week's video in terms of where they are after the second week of testing, that's when we're going to find out where they sort of are and what we're going to be expecting in terms of the first race in Australia. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the first week of testing. Let me know what you think in terms of how you think the first week of testing's gone. How have your favourite team done so far? Have they put in as many laps as possible? Have they had issues? If you're a Renault fan, let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Please like the video if you've enjoyed. Obviously subscribe to the Pole Position YouTube channel. We're going to be doing more videos of this, obviously the testing and obviously the build up to the first race of the season in Australia. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.